kitchen, homemaking, chore, consumer direction, loneliness, and intergenerational programming, and has a background in marketing and communications. So I'm excited for her presentation today. And we'll turn the time over to her. I'm gonna just pull up her slideshow. Um, let's see. Ryan, if you want to stop sharing, I'll get that sharing, and then Janet, we'll just let you take over. So, can everyone see the slide?
Thank you, Sarah. I'm a little technologically challenged, but Sarah's helping me, and I just first got throat, so I'm
Oh no.
hoping my voice is gonna hold it out. So anyway, thank you all for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Like Sarah said, I'm a program specialist with the Idaho Commission on Aging. I oversee multiple programs, but this is my favorite because I feel like it impacts the most amount of people. And my biggest goal for this year is to just bring awareness. I do have a stakeholder group and we meet on a quarterly basis. So if any of you would be interested in being part of that, please let me know. My contact information will be on the very last slide. So, okay, next slide, please. So before we start talking about loneliness, we need to make sure that everyone understands the difference between social isolation and loneliness. Social isolation is very objective. We know who are kind of socially isolated. But loneliness is something completely different. You can be in a room full of people. I love this, and be lonely. I love this definition. It's my favorite definition. And I promise not to read all the slides, but I think it's important to read this. It's a distressing experience that occurs when a person's social relationships are perceived by that person to be less in quantity and especially in quality than desired. And there's a couple of things that are really important there. The quality of her. So we could be that quality word, because we can be in a room full of people, but if those connections are not quality, then they don't count, right? And then also the other word that's important in there is perceived, because we all have our own perceptions of connection. And some people, they thrive in certain groups, and some people, it would make them really uncomfortable. I'm a little socially awkward when I get together with a group of people, and I'm usually seeking out, if I don't find somebody with a common interest with me pretty quick, I am seeking out the dog, because that's who I want to be with, because that's where I'm comfortable, for sure. So go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So I'm really excited. So the US Surgeon General, Dr. Murthy, he in 2023 came out with advisory on social isolation and loneliness. And it was really exciting when he did this, because up to that point, when I would be out talking about this, people would be like, yeah, loneliness, whatever. And they think of it as this emotional response. And I would give them the facts. And I didn't feel like anybody ever took this super seriously. But now that he's talking about this, I feel like there's a lot of teeth and people are really listening to what we're saying. And for him to say that it is a huge public health concern, is really beneficial to getting the word out and getting some, just getting people to take it very seriously. So next slide, please. And so this is just a quick video. It's about 3 minutes of him talking about it, and we're going to kind of dig into what he says after this is done.
I have no volume.
I was wondering if I was the only
Me
one.
too. I have no volume.
Yeah, there's no audio.
Hey, Sarah, can you go up to the very top where it says options and select it's if you're sharing, it's up at the very top.
Loneliness is far more than just a bad feeling. Being socially disconnected, which can range from feeling alone to being isolated, is bad both for individual and societal health. Research shows that loneliness and isolation are associated with a greater risk of heart disease, dementia, stroke, depression, anxiety, and premature death. In fact, lacking connection can increase the risk of premature death to levels comparable to smoking daily. Loneliness and social isolation are also far more common than we might realize. About 1 in 2 American adults report experiencing loneliness. Everyone can be impacted across all ages, socioeconomic conditions, and geographies. This widespread disconnection presents profound threats to our health and well-being. Social connection is as fundamental to our mental and physical health as food, water, and sleep. And it affects our performance and productivity at work, school, and in our communities. Now is the time to invest in building social connection. This first ever Surgeon General's advisory on our epidemic of loneliness and isolation shows us how. The keys to connection are simple. Answer a phone call from a friend. Invite someone over to share a meal. Listen and be present during conversation. Seek out opportunities to serve others. These steps may seem small, but they're extraordinarily powerful. By strengthening our relationships, we can improve our heart and brain health, reduce our risk of diabetes and high blood pressure, boost our immune systems, and lower our risk of depression. We can build lives and communities that are healthier and happier. And we can ensure our country and the world are better poised than ever to take on the challenges that lie ahead. Visit surgeongeneral.gov/connection to learn more.
So that's a great, that was a obviously very involved report, but if you have a chance, there's some amazing information in there. So you can go to the next slide. So this is kind of what he talked about, it's comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. I mean, but you look at that, I mean, we could drink 6 glasses of alcohol, be physically inactive, and it wouldn't have the same impact on our health as being lonely. And so that tells you, the huge impact being lonely has. And we always think of this as an emotional response, but this talks about the impact on our health. So go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So these are some of the big health risks, and the depression, anxiety, and suicide rates. Those are things that we would all expect from being lonely, like we're alone, and those are the things that happen. We've all experienced loneliness at some level. Those things go along with that. But when we look at these numbers of a huge increased risk in stroke and heart disease, and that the number about dementia, 50% increase in dementia, that seems huge to me. The first time I read that, I thought that is crazy amount, but all of this physical impact. And then the premature death from all causes. That makes sense too, because you have all these things coming together. So those are kind of sad statistics. So let's talk about who's lonely. So if you go to the next slide. When I first started doing this research, I 100% knew without a doubt that seniors, the older Idahoans, were the most lonely. And the more I did my research, the more I found out that was not true. The most lonely are actually young adults. And that statistics was super personal to me because my children are young adults, and I looked at them and I thought, oh my goodness, it is true. And there's a lot of research behind that. Some, they're not necessarily used to that face-to-face connection. They connect through phones and technology. And sometimes when they're out of their normal, like they graduate from high school and they go away to college, they don't necessarily have that skill set to connect with other people. And so that made sense to me. You know, and then there are some other things here, that are pretty obvious why they would have, and the next slide, if you move to that, I'm gonna go in a little more in depth and some risk factors. So if you go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Okay, so these are risk factors that are connected to the last slide, but just a little more in depth. And I just want to talk, some of these are very obvious, like living alone and being homebound. I want to talk about major life loss. We sometimes think of major life loss as maybe like losing a spouse. But also think about it, maybe somebody you know has lost their job. You know, that's not fun. You know, I've been fired from a job and that is not a fun place to be. And I self-isolated for a while because you're embarrassed and there's no reason to be, because everybody's been, well, not everybody, but a lot of people have been through it, or you lose your home, financial problems, those kinds of things impact. So if there's people around you that are going through a hard time, even if they're trying to self-isolate, sometimes it's just important to let them know you're there. Being a newer single parent, for your parent, you understand that completely. You know, maybe you're staying at home and you've been used to working. I went from a job that I was around people all the time to being home with my child. You know, that was a struggle for me for a while. And caregivers. So we often think of caregivers as either someone that, you know, lives with someone that needs care, or we think of someone that, you know, is a paid caregiver. But think of yourself as a caregiver. You know, my mother has dementia, my dad is 86 and has all these problems, and I spend a lot of my vacation time taking care of my parents because I have to plan for them. I take them to their surgeries, I go to the hospital with them, I take care of all of that. And so it's beyond just the full-time caregiver that can be lonely. And then the rural and unsafe neighborhoods, that really made sense to me in the beginning. I was debating whether to take that out or not. So the unsafe neighborhoods still make sense to me, because if you're not, you don't feel safe leaving your home, you're unsafe. And when I first put rural in, all the studies were saying, yes, if you're in a rural area, you know, it's further to your neighbors. But that I've read some recent research that says that people in rural areas are actually less lonely than people in urban areas. And I live in a rural area. I commute an hour to work, and I live in a rural area. And I was thinking about that, and I'm like, there's so much truth in that. So those of you that live in rural areas know that we have to take care of our own. Like, we have to take care of our neighbor. If our neighbor's barn is on fire, we have to go help them put it out, because the volunteers have to get off their tractor, drive their truck to town to get the fire truck to come back, right? If somebody's sick, you know, we take care of each other. And so I love the studies that are saying that rural people are not necessarily as lonely, because I think there's some truth to that. It depends on who you're talking to, what their opinion is on that. So that's why I decided to leave that in. But there's some other things here, language, you know, discrimination, incontinence, people are embarrassed by those things, health issues, they might not be able to get out, just like if they're homebound. So I think there's a lot of truth. I think this is not an exhaustive list for sure, but these are some factors. And so just be aware of people that are in these situations. And sometimes it doesn't take a lot. You know, we're going to talk about what we can do about it. So that's what we're going to talk about next. Next slide. Oh, no, that's not what we're going to talk about next. Sorry. I was one slide ahead. So let's talk about the financial impacts. We know about the physical impacts. We know about the emotional impacts. So let's talk about the financial impacts. And Medicare says that it costs, or AARP says that social isolation and loneliness costs Medicare $6.7 billion per year. So there's some obvious factors there that are like, we talked about the increase, the increased medical needs that are associated with loneliness, but also think about it. So let's say your neighbor Sally Joe needs to go somewhere, and she comes to her neighbor and says, I just really want to go to the senior center, I'm lonely, right? He doesn't necessarily, he goes like, I gotta work, I don't have time. But if she goes to him and says, you know what, I really need to go to the doctor, that seems more real to people, right? And so he might take the time to do that. So sometimes the doctor visits are social visits too. So there's a variety of reasons that's more. And then Cygnus says that the impact on annually to the workplace is $154 billion per year. This lost productivity due to loneliness. Variety of reasons. We work remotely in our office. We work remotely 2 days a week, and we come in the office 3 days a week. And sometimes we are not super productive when we first get here because we're socializing, because we were lonely at home all alone. And so there's a lot of reasons for that. And also the depression that goes with that as well makes people less productive. Overall, the study says that the total impact on the US economy is $406 billion per year. So that has to do with private insurance costs, the lost revenue for workplaces and everything else associated with that. Okay. Now that we talked about all those issues, let's talk about what we can do about it, because I just don't think it's right to talk about a problem and not come up with solutions. So I'm going to talk about things we can do. I'm going to show you some resources. I have to warn you, most of the resources let me just get another drink. Are really geared at seniors. But that doesn't mean you can't use those resources for younger populations. So, and I'm going to show you I am going to give you some links, and Sarah can send these slides out so you can utilize the links. So next slide. So when we were watching the video from the Surgeon General, he's like, it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be complicated, just go visit with your friend, just go visit with your neighbor. Check in with people that, just call your friend, check in with them. And if you're going somewhere and your neighbor's all alone, you're going to church, you're going to dinner, just maybe invite them along. It doesn't have to be huge, or take somebody's mail to them. My parents love it when somebody just stops by and picks up their mail and takes it to them and just says hello. It doesn't take a ton of time, but just make an effort for people. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this, I love this toolkit through Engage. And so it's engagingolderadults.org. And what I love most about this is that everything on this site is customizable. So it automatically has the Engaged and the US Aging logos on there, but there is a place on everything to put your logo as well. So it looks like you're co-presenting with them. It gives it some legitimacy. And so that's what I love about this, and all the tools. So you can see all the tools they have here. The PowerPoint presentation is very focused on seniors, but when I present to other groups, I usually add in some slides on the younger population. The UCLA 3-item loneliness scale is in there. That it's basically a simple screening tool to see if someone is lonely. there's just a lot of things. The calendar of social engagement opportunities I haven't found is incredibly helpful because they're national and there's not a lot of local things on there. There are photos on there that if you're developing your own brochures or things, you can use those. So, but I'll tell you my favorite thing here, if we can go to the next slide. This is my favorite thing here, is the social engagement hub. And this is basically focused on older adults. However, there's just like hundreds and hundreds of programs. And what I really love about this is that you can go up to the top and you can't see it very well, but on the left side there, you can sort what you want and just say you wanted something that was intergenerational, you can just write intergenerational in, or if you want something that's art-based or animal-based or whatever, you can actually sort out the population you're looking for and whatever source you're looking for. Whatever, whatever you want. There is a ton of information there. And I'm going to give you one more resource in a couple slides that I love even more than I love this one. So if you go to the next one. Okay, Commit to Connect. I love this one. This one is through ACL, which is the Administration for Community Living, and it is housed in US Aging. But ACL serves people with disabilities as well as the aging population and the disability population. But US Aging houses this particular site, so very exciting. So if you could take me to the next slide. So this is to the Commit to Connect forum, and what I love about this forum, you have to, so the Commit to Connect, they have this thing that's called, and I'm completely blank on it. Let me just, dang it, they're the advocate. I can't remember what it's called, and I was gonna write this down and I didn't. But anyway, community connection something. Anyway, but once you become whatever it's called, you can get in this forum. But I'm gonna open this website so I can tell you, because yeah, it's Network of Champions. Sorry. Once you become a champion in the network, you can get in here, and these are interactive. So once you get in this, you become a champion, but you just have to apply. They just have to know you have genuine interest in this, and they'll let you in. But you can write a question in there, and you will get a ton of answers. People that will answer your questions. And I've talked to a lot of people about rural information and intergenerational information. And this is a fantastic community. And this is not, even though it's housed in US Aging, it is not focused specifically on aging population. It's because they are also focused on folks with disabilities. So this would be a great resource for you. Okay, next slide. These are the QR codes, Commit to Connect and Engage. And then the first one is the social engagement programs specifically for area agencies on aging, which there's just that many more resources, and you can adapt any of this. So next. Right. So these are resources that I put together for all of you because I wanted to present some resources that weren't specifically focused on the senior population. The JED Foundation is focused on schools and alleviating loneliness in school. For all ages, that's pretty self-explanatory. That's intergenerational. Best Buddies International is focused on people with intellectual disabilities. Friends for Good is based out of Australia. It's a general loneliness program that they have there. It's always nice. I like to look at what's going on in different countries and just get their different perspectives. The Coalition in Social Isolation and Loneliness, that's an action and advocacy. If you go to that website, you're getting they're the ones that are in Washington doing the work there, advocating for these to bring awareness and legislation. And then Healthy Places by Design, they do a lot of grants and they do community consults. So let them go to communities and consult with them and say, how can we make your community more, social friendly? What we can do along those lines. Okay, next. This is the ICOA, so it's our website, Idaho Commission on Aging Loneliness Training, and it's broken up in modules. If you have 10 minutes, you can do a module. If you wanted to do the entire training, it'd probably take an hour, a little more. And I can take 0 credit for this, as much as I would love to take credit for this because I feel like it's phenomenal training. But I can take 0 credit for it, but it is really good. And I go back and rewatch it on a regular basis because I think it's so good. It talks about communicating, it talks about, the different pieces of loneliness, and I highly recommend you taking this when you have a few minutes. So next slide, please. So we talked about taking care of everyone else and what we can do for everyone else. So let's talk a little bit about what we can do for ourselves. And these are the things, there's a list 1 million long. I could talk all day about this. These are the things that I find helpful, but you can add to this list. And I will say, sometimes I think that when we talk about volunteering, we think about serving others, and we are serving others when we volunteer. But I feel like if we're serving as a volunteer in the right capacity, it's filling our soul too. And I'm a 4-H leader, and when my kids show up in my arena with their horses and they're riding, it fills my soul. And so it's a two-way street. Pets, adopting a pet, they say the dog is the best pet, but I don't know, I guess if you're a cat, that makes sense to me, but I guess if you're a cat person, or I have a friend that she adopted like 5 guinea pigs, and that feeds her soul. So whatever makes, whatever floats your boat, I guess. And these other things, obviously I like to play music when I'm getting ready in the morning, exercising, and I exercise with my dog, so that's twofold. And, call a friend. During the pandemic, I got really lonely. We were working remotely completely, and I called my friend that was my best friend when we were teenagers and said, we've got to get together. And so we started getting together, and instead of talking once a year, we now go out to lunch once every couple months, and we're planning a vacation together in December. And so, take care of yourself. I know what you guys are doing, and you are used to taking care of others, but take care of yourself as well. And when you're positive, it's hard to be depressed or feel too lonely when you're thinking of the good things. So I like to write a gratitude journal every day, just talk about everything good in my life. Right, next. So this is something specific that can impact. This is directly off the U.S. Surgeon General's website, and I love this. He designed it to be done at Christmas time. I revised the card that he did, and I made it because I don't think it has to be at Christmas time. I think this can be any time. And he says to connect with one person per day for 5 days. And we're supposed to express gratitude, offer support, or ask for help. Now, I know what you're all thinking, that last one's hard for you because it's hard for me. So my biggest recommendation is to do that at least one of the 5 days. And the other thing that I put on here that I added on here that I think people should do, and it doesn't have to be 5, but I said, because the number was 5, I said 5. Ask 5 people to complete the activity with you. If you have a couple of friends that are willing to complete it with you, see how many more people you're going to impact if you do that. So next slide, please. And this is a revised postcard. And this kind of just so you wouldn't have to use this specifically. But this kind of gives you an idea of you know, what you write down and how the connection made you feel. I love that it says, how did the connection make you feel? Because it's not enough to connect. You need to think about how it made you feel or how it made somebody else feel. Because if you think about how you feel when you're making those connections, then you'll know how they impact other people's lives that much more, right? So go ahead and next slide. So this is the kind of guidance for that postcard. It gives you some ideas. And like that last column, ask for accept help. That gives you some ideas. I'm sure none of you have trouble expressing gratitude or offering support. But that last column, that will give you some ideas. So, and the last one, that column right there in the bottom right, reach out for professional mental health support, like calling 988. And I'm going to use that to transition into my next slide. I've been meeting with the suicide prevention folks from Health and Welfare, and they asked me to please make sure that everyone is aware of the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, 988. And it's really important for everyone to understand this is not a moment of, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. I'm ready to commit suicide right now. This is a crisis line. So it's okay to call this, say, things are tough and I'm considering this. You don't have to wait till that moment of finality or whatever. This is I need somebody to talk to now. I'm considering this moment. And so that's really important. I felt like that was really important to express that. And the last thing I'm going to talk about here is, you can go ahead and change the slide. We need to be creative in our solutions. This specifically, what I'm going to talk about is about suicide awareness, but I think we can use this example for loneliness and bringing people in and bringing awareness to loneliness. This is one of my 4-H kiddos. A year ago, Thomas Duncan, who was a very esteemed rodeo photographer, he committed suicide. And my little friend Grace here, she said it made me really sad, and I wanted to do something about it. And I said, what are you going to do? And she goes, I'm not sure. And she was a rodeo queen at the time. She was getting ready to give up her title. She was going to run for another title. And she goes, I'm going to create a suicide awareness ambassador. And so she became the first suicide awareness ambassador. It's going to be an ongoing rodeo queen type title. And I was really proud of her. So this year she basically wrote as a suicide awareness ambassador, and she said the stories that she was told, the people that came and talked to her, the people that thanked her were incredible. And along those same lines, Miss Rodeo Idaho of 2023, Lydia Miller, she had her platform because they all choose a platform that they have, and hers was Ride With Me. And basically it was make sure you connect with people and make sure people are okay. She talked about the suicide in rural Idaho, but basically it was about connecting with other people and the importance of making people feel included. And the reason I'm telling you about this is that, this is my world. Like, I was a rodeo queen, my daughter was a rodeo queen, and of course I coached Lo Gracie here to be a rodeo queen. But we all have our things, right? I mean, there's people that are probably racing their motorcycles or playing tennis or whatever you do, right? That's your thing. So there's opportunities in whatever you do to bring awareness to this loneliness and bring awareness, suicide awareness. So I just want you to think outside your normal box and bring this awareness with you wherever you go, where you touch people. Okay. So I think so the next slide, if you'd like to share your experience on social media, we do use the hashtag Idaho Connects here. So we would love for you to use that, just to bring awareness to connecting with others to prevent loneliness. And this is my contact information. If any of you would like to be involved in my stakeholder group, like I said, it's only a quarterly meeting. We meet like an hour. Sometimes I give you homework, like go out and do this or that, but obviously that's optional. But we have people from kind of all walks of life. We have people from insurance companies, and we have people from hospitals and area agencies on aging and schools, all kinds of people. Usually there's about 15 to 20 people on the call. It just depends on the quarter. But if anybody's interested, let me know. Shoot me an email and let me know. I would love to have you. So I am open for any questions you would like to ask.
Thank you for sharing.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, not necessarily about for what you spoke. I just wanted to know whether you're gonna share your information with our email.
I will send an email out with the recorded session so you can rewatch,
Okay. Okay.
as well as the slides and some of these links that Janet has shared with us to resources. So
Okay.
yeah, we'll send that
Thank
out
you, Sarah.
probably tomorrow.
Okay.
If not tomorrow, Monday for sure.
Okay. Thank you, Janet.
Thank you. And the other thing that I want to make sure, I am happy if you belong to an organization that would like a presentation, I'm always available. The reason I got connected here is Leah from St. Mary's, and I'm sorry, did I say that right? St. Mary's Health. I went and did a presentation with her, and so she's the one that connected me. So I am happy. Sometimes if you're far away, I might have to do it virtually. But I am happy, especially if you're local or within a few hours, I'm happy to come do it in person as well.
Where are you located, Janet?
My office is in Boise.
Awesome.
But I do travel to other parts of the state, a few times a year. So if you wanted to just see if I was coming your direction at some point, if I was already there, doing audits for our area agency or something, I could come in person.
Awesome. Okay, I'll leave it open for a little bit longer, just if there's any questions or discussion or maybe observations in your work that you'd like to share. We can take a couple minutes to discuss, and then we'll make sure we send out the information to everybody.
I'm curious to know if anyone has used any of the resources that Janet presented, or used other tactics to try to address loneliness or social isolation with your clients, with people you're working with.
We are in the process of trying to incorporate it with our social determinants of health. We do have a screening event at the Idaho County Fair. And so I'm going to use Janet's, a lot of the information that she has, and just set up a table on social isolation and loneliness, just to bring awareness to it in our areas, because people might not even oh, even understand that the repercussions of that, it may just be a way of life, or they may, but the health factors that it affects, just bringing awareness to it. So we're going to try that. That's next week. We're going to do it there. And then, like I said, we're trying to incorporate it with our social determinants of health, our HRA referrals.
I think that just bringing awareness is huge. I mean, I was shocked when I saw those things. Like when I saw that there was such a huge increase for stroke and heart disease and the financial impact. I mean, like, I was blown away. Who knew? And so, I mean, I feel like half the battle is bringing awareness.
Leah, it was great to hear your voice, and we'll maybe loop back with you and hear how that went. That's great that you're trying some of those.
Absolutely. And I am happy to help. Feel free to use me as a resource. If you just need somebody to brainstorm with, to come up with ideas. Our different area agencies on aging are doing different things. And like I said, those resources I gave you are phenomenal. There's so many great ideas, for sure.
I'm excited for myself and to share with some others about the connecting with 5 people and sharing that with others, because if we all did that collectively, I mean, there were at least 30 participants at one point in this meeting, so that's definitely, like, for me, an eye-opening, like, it's something that I think we all know we're supposed to be, like, doing. And I think our society, it's like you mentioned, right, with especially young people, like, we don't really do that anymore. We don't reach out, we don't, like, find out what's going on with our neighbors. We don't always make those connections. And so just doing it intentionally, I'm excited to see how that changes things around me.
Absolutely. And I made a commitment. I would never again say, I'm good. I'm good when I'm not. I promise, because you know what? We all say, I'm good. You know what? And right now, I have so many, like my mom has dementia, my dad has all this heart disease and stuff. And I decided I'm not going to say I'm good anymore when I'm not, because when we all say we're good, then people feel like they can't be not good. So it's important to share where we really are.
I love that.
Yeah, I was thinking through your presentation about also how more and more the structures of our society, the physical environment, the built environment is less conducive to meeting people, to if you don't know what I'm talking about, just drive around Meridian for a little bit. It's like all 1 mile blocks with 1 or 2 entrances into the block, and it's kind of insular and not very walkable. And you're not just going to necessarily meet. I mean, a lot of people want that. And that's kind of how we've become almost engineered in a way. Is like we want our own space. We want a small yard because we don't want to be in the yard, because we don't want to talk to our neighbors, because we like
Right, we went from
our own
sitting-
time, right?
Yeah, we went from sitting on our front porches at some point in our lives to retreating to our backyards.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we do need to rethink, how we engage. And that's not to say that you can't have, some really gratifying relationships online or in other regards. But yes, we have to consciously, I think, address it. So I appreciate your presentation.